The massive chamber on Luna Station was filled with silence. 17 different alien species sat around the circular table, their various forms creating strange shadows under the bright lights. Some had tentacles instead of arms. Others had scales that changed color when they were nervous. A few looked almost human, except for their bright blue skin or extra eyes. Admiral Lisa Hartwell sat in the human chair, her dark hair pulled back in a tight bun. Her gray uniform was simple compared to the elaborate robes and armor worn by the other representatives. She kept her hands folded on the table, waiting. The Zephyrian ambassador spoke first. His tall, thin body swayed slightly as his voice filled the room. The Zephyrians always moved like grass in the wind, even when they were sitting still. His large, dark eyes focused on Lisa as he asked the question that had been hanging over them all for weeks. "Admiral Hartwell," he said slowly, "we have talked for many hours about the Devourer fleet approaching our systems. They have destroyed 12 colonies already. Their ships are faster than ours. Their weapons are stronger. Their numbers are beyond counting." He paused, looking around the table at the other representatives. "We must ask the difficult question. What if war with the Devourers is truly unavoidable?" The room grew even quieter. Lisa could hear the soft humming of the station's life support systems. She could see the fear in the aliens' eyes, no matter what color those eyes were or how many. They had. The Carillion representative, a being that looked like a walking crystal, made a sound like wind chimes. "The human fleets are small," it said. "Your technology is new. You have been part of this council for only 5 years. Perhaps it would be wise to consider other options." A murmur went around the table. Lisa knew what they meant by other options. They were talking about surrender. They were talking about running away to the far edges of the galaxy and hoping the Devourers would be satisfied with what they had already taken. The Altarian ambassador leaned forward. Her purple skin was darker than usual, which Lisa had learned meant she was very worried. "The Devourers have never been defeated," she said. "In 300 years, no species has even slowed them down. They consume everything. Planets, ships, entire civilizations. Nothing stops them." Lisa listened to them talk. She heard the fear in their voices. She watched as some of the representatives shifted in their seats, already thinking about how fast their ships could carry them away from the approaching enemy. The Thessian representative spoke next. His forearms gestured as he talked, which made his words seem more urgent. "We have run calculations. The probability of victory against the Devourers is less than 2%. The probability of survival for our species if we fight is even lower." More voices joined in. The Meridian ambassador talked about protecting their young. The Cosmic Drift representative mentioned sacred sites that needed to be preserved. Everyone had reasons why fighting was impossible. Lisa picked up her tablet from the table. It was a simple device, black and rectangular. She activated it with her thumb and opened a new document. The soft blue glow of the screen reflected on her face as she began to type. The aliens kept talking, but their voices grew quieter. They were watching her now, wondering what the human representative was doing. Some of them had learned to read human facial expressions over the years. Lisa's face showed no fear, no worry, no doubt. Her expression was calm and determined. She finished typing and looked up at the assembled representatives. The Zephyrian ambassador was still waiting for her answer to his question. The others were watching her with curiosity and hope, as if She might have some solution they had not thought of. Lisa stood up slowly. Her chair made a soft sound as it moved back. She was not very tall compared to some of the aliens in the room, but something about the way she moved made everyone pay attention. She picked up her tablet and walked around the table to where the Zephyrian ambassador sat. Without saying a word, she placed the tablet in front of him. The screen was still glowing, showing the message she had written. The text was simple, written in the common galactic language that all council members used. The Zephyrian looked down at the screen. His large eyes grew even larger as he read the words. He looked up at Lisa, confusion clear on his face. Lisa turned away from the table. She walked toward the chamber's main door, her boots making soft, clicking sounds on the metal floor. The other representatives were leaning forward now, trying to see what she had written on the tablet. The Altarian ambassador was the first to speak. "Admiral Hartwell," she called out, "where are you going? You have not answered the question." Lisa stopped at the door but did not turn around. "I have answered it," she said simply. The Carillion representative made its wind chime sound again, but louder this time. "We do not understand. What did you write?" Lisa looked back over her shoulder. "Read it," she said. The Zephyrian ambassador picked up the tablet with his long, thin fingers. He held it up so the others could see the screen. His voice was quiet as he read the words aloud. "Then don't lose." The chamber fell completely silent. Several representatives stared at the tablet screen. Others looked at the door where Lisa had been standing. A few exchanged glances with each other, trying to understand what they had just heard. Lisa was already walking down the corridor outside, the chamber. Her footsteps echoed off the walls as she headed toward the docking bay where her ship was waiting. Behind her, she could hear the voices of the alien representatives growing louder as they discussed her response. She smiled slightly as she walked. They would understand soon enough. Humans did not run from fights. They did not calculate probabilities of surrender. When someone asked what would happen if war was unavoidable, there was only one possible answer: don't lose. The corridor led to the main transit tube that would take her to the docking bay. As she waited for the transport, Lisa activated her communication device. She had calls to make and plans to set in motion. The Devourers were coming, and humanity needed to be ready. The other species could spend their time calculating odds and discussing surrender. Humans would spend their time preparing for victory. 3 days after leaving Luna Station, Lisa stood in the Pentagon's most secure briefing room. The walls were lined with screens showing star maps, fleet positions, and classified data that made her jaw clench with determination. She had called together the people she trusted most in the entire galaxy. General Marcus Kane sat at the long metal table, his weathered face serious as always. He had been fighting battles since before Lisa was born, and his gray hair showed every year of that experience. Next to him was Colonel Amy Rodriguez, her sharp eyes already studying the tactical displays. Commander Jake Sullivan completed the group, his young face showing the kind of intensity that came from knowing the fate of humanity rested on their decisions. "Show me what we're facing," Lisa said as she took her seat at the head of the table. Jake activated the main display. The screen filled with images of the Devourer fleet, taken by long-range scouts who had risked their lives to get this information. The alien ships were massive, dark things that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Each one was larger than anything humanity had ever built. Intelligence estimates put their fleet at over 1,500 ships, Jake said. Their largest vessels are 20 kilometers long. They carry weapons that can crack a planet's crust in a single shot. Amy leaned forward. Our conventional fleets won't even scratch them. The aliens are right about that much. If we fight them the way everyone else has fought them, we'll lose just as badly. Marcus nodded slowly. Which is why we won't fight them, the way everyone else has. Lisa smiled. This was why she had chosen these people. They understood that losing was not an option, which meant they had to find a way to win that no one else had thought of. Tell them about Prometheus, she said. Marcus stood and walked to another display panel. When he activated it, the room filled with images that would have shocked the Galactic Council. Massive shipyards hidden in the asteroid belt. Weapons testing. Facilities on the dark side of the moon. Production lines that had been running in secret for over 20 years. Project Prometheus has been humanity's insurance policy since we joined the galactic community, Marcus explained. We knew that sooner or later we would face something that conventional diplomacy couldn't handle. The screen showed sleek warships, unlike anything the galaxy had seen. They were smaller than the massive vessels other species built, but they were covered in weapon systems and armor plating that seemed to shimmer with its own energy. Amy whistled softly. How many do we have? 347 ships of the line, Marcus said, each one designed specifically to fight enemies larger and more numerous than ourselves, plus support vessels, orbital defense platforms, and ground-based weapons that can reach into space. Jake was studying the ship designs with growing excitement. These aren't built for long-range exploration or peaceful missions. These are pure warships. Lisa nodded. Every human colony has been secretly preparing for this day. We've been training soldiers, building weapons, and developing tactics while the rest of the galaxy focused on trade and diplomacy. The display changed to show ground installations on dozens of worlds. Each one looked like a fortress, with thick walls and weapon emplacements that could defend against orbital bombardment. But it's not just about having better weapons, Lisa continued. It's about fighting smarter. The Devourers have conquered other species by being bigger and stronger. They're used to enemies who fight fair, who follow the traditional rules of space warfare. Marcus grinned, and for the first time in days, he looked almost cheerful. Humans don't fight fair. Amy was examining tactical reports on her tablet. The Devourers attack in massive formations. They rely on overwhelming firepower and superior numbers. Their strategy has worked for 300 years because every other species tries to match them ship for ship. What happens when they face an enemy that refuses to fight by their rules? Lisa asked. Jake was beginning to understand. We don't try to match their numbers. We hit them where they don't expect it, when they don't expect it, with weapons they've never seen before. Lisa activated another display. This one showed the solar system, but not as the galaxy knew it. Hidden throughout the asteroid belt were weapons platforms disguised as mining stations. The moon's dark side was covered with missile installations. Even Earth's orbital stations had concealed weapon systems. The other species know about our main fleet, she said. They've seen our regular ships and our standard weapons. What they don't know is that those represent less than 20% of our actual military capability. Marcus pulled up detailed specifications for the Prometheus ships. Stealth technology that makes our ships invisible to their sensors. Quantum. Torpedoes that can punch through any armor. Plasma cannons that can cut a battle cruiser in half with one shot. Amy was reading through personnel files. And our crews have been training for this specific scenario for decades. Every ship captain knows exactly how to fight the Devourers. Every soldier knows their role in the defense plan. Lisa stood and walked to the large window that looked out over the Pentagon's courtyard. Beyond the building, she could see normal. People going about their daily lives. They had no idea that their entire species was about to face its greatest challenge. "The Galactic Council thinks we're naive," she said. "They think we're too young and too small to make a difference. They're about to learn that they've been very wrong." Jake was studying the timeline for their preparations. "When do we reveal the truth?" "When the Devourers arrive," Lisa said. "Not before. Let them think we're weak. Let them underestimate us. Surprise is our greatest weapon." Marcus was grinning again. "I almost feel sorry for them. They're expecting to face another species like the ones they've conquered before. Instead, they're about to meet humanity." Amy looked up from her tablet. "What about the other species? Do we tell them about our real capabilities?" Lisa turned back to face the group. "We tell them enough to keep them out of our way. The aliens can evacuate their colonies if they want to. They can run to the edge of the galaxy and hide. That's their choice. But they need to understand that Earth is not running anywhere." The room was quiet for a moment as everyone absorbed the implications of what they were planning. They were about to start a war that would determine the future of the entire galaxy. "Any questions?" Lisa asked. Jake raised his hand slightly. "Just one. Are we really going to be able to win this?" Lisa looked at each of them in turn. Marcus, who had never lost a battle that mattered. Amy, who could outthink any enemy commander. Jake, who had the kind of courage that inspired others to follow him anywhere. "The Devourers asked the wrong question," she said. "They wanted to know if war was unavoidable. They should have asked if they were ready for the kind of war humanity fights." She activated her communication device and opened a channel to every human military installation in the galaxy. "This is Admiral Lisa Hartwell," she said. "Project Prometheus is now active. All units are to assume battle stations and await further orders. The enemy is coming, and we're going to show them what happens when they threaten humanity." The preparation phase was over. Now it was time for war. The journey to Mars took 12 hours, but Lisa spent most of that time reviewing battle plans and personnel files. Her transport ship was one of the regular fleet vessels that the galaxy knew about. Nothing special or threatening. That was exactly how she wanted it to appear. As they approached Mars, Lisa looked out the window at the massive shipyards, floating in orbit around the red planet. To most observers, they looked like typical construction facilities where humans built their merchant vessels and small warships. The reality was far different. Admiral Peter Walsh met her at the docking bay. He was a big man with hands that looked like they could crush steel, but Lisa knew those same hands could pilot a ship through an asteroid field without scratching the paint. He had been in charge of the Prometheus shipyards since the project began 20 years ago. "Lisa," he said, greeting her with a firm handshake. "Good to see you again, though I wish it was under better circumstances." They walked through corridors that looked normal on the surface, but hid secrets behind every wall. Lisa noticed the subtle signs that told her this was no ordinary facility. The walls were thicker than they needed to be. The corridors were wider than standard designs required. Everything was built to handle the stress of manufacturing warships in secret. "Show me what we have," Lisa said. Peter led her to an observation deck that overlooked the main construction bay. Lisa had seen these facilities before, but the sight still impressed her. Massive ships hung in construction frames, their hulls gleaming under the bright work lights. These were not the simple vessels that other species built. Every line of their design spoke of speed, power, and deadly purpose. The last of the Prometheus-class ships will be completed in 6 days, Peter said. All of our heavy cruisers are ready for combat. The destroyers finished their final tests last week. Lisa studied the ships carefully. They were beautiful in the way that weapons could be beautiful when form followed function perfectly. Their hulls were covered in armor plating that could withstand direct hits from capital ship weapons. Their weapon ports were designed to fire multiple types of ammunition depending on the target. "What about the special projects?" she asked. Peter smiled and activated a control panel. The floor beneath them became transparent, revealing another construction bay below. This one was even more heavily guarded, and the ships being built there were unlike anything in the galaxy. "Project Ghost Rider," Peter said. "Stealth ships that can approach enemy vessels without being detected. They're small, fast, and armed with quantum torpedoes that can destroy ships 10 times their size." Lisa counted the sleek vessels below. There were more than 50 of them, each one a perfect killing machine designed for surprise attacks. "And the other project?" Peter's smile grew wider. "You'll want to see that in person." They took a transport tube to the most secure section of the facility. Here, the corridors were lined with guards and scanning devices that checked their identities 3 different ways. When they finally reached their destination, Lisa found herself in a laboratory filled with equipment she barely recognized. Dr. Helen Carter looked up from a workbench covered with components that seemed to glow with their own light. She was a small woman with gray hair and eyes that sparkled with intelligence. Lisa had known her for 15 years, ever since Helen had joined the Prometheus project as a young scientist fresh from university. "Admiral," Helen said, wiping her hands on a lab coat. "Perfect timing. I was just finishing the final calibrations." She led them to a display case that contained what looked like a small metal cylinder. It was about the size of a coffee cup, and it hummed softly with some kind of internal energy. "Quantum disruptor warheads," Helen explained. "Each one contains enough destructive power to cripple a devourer capital ship. The beauty is that they don't just damage the target, they disrupt the quantum fields that hold matter together at the atomic level." Lisa leaned closer to examine the device. "How many do we have?" "Over 2,000, Helen said proudly. "And we can manufacture more as needed. The Devourers have never faced anything like this technology because no other species has been willing to push the boundaries of quantum physics this far." Peter was studying technical readouts on a nearby screen. "The delivery systems are ready too. We can fire these from our ship-mounted launchers, or we can use them in long-range missiles that can reach targets from outside their weapon range." Lisa felt a surge of satisfaction. This was why humanity would win. Other species develop technology slowly, carefully, always worried about the risks. Humans pushed forward no matter what the dangers might be. They were willing to take chances that others wouldn't even consider. "What about the ground forces?" she asked. Helen activated another display that showed images from training facilities across the solar system. Human soldiers were practicing with weapons and equipment that looked like something from a science fiction movie. Their armor was powered by fusion reactors. Their rifles could punch through tank armor. Their combat vehicles could fly, swim, and operate in the vacuum of space. "Every colony world has been training for this day," Helen said. "Our Marines are equipped with technology that makes them more effective than anything the galaxy has seen. A single human squad can take on a company of conventional infantry and win." Lisa watched videos of the training exercises. She saw soldiers moving with speed and coordination that seemed impossible. Their equipment let them jump across buildings, survive direct hits from heavy weapons, and communicate instantly across vast distances. The Devourers are used to fighting species that are similar to them, Peter said. Large, slow, predictable. They've never faced an enemy that thinks as fast as we do or fights as creatively as we do. Helen nodded in agreement. Their tactics haven't changed in centuries because they've never needed to change them. They overwhelm their enemies with superior numbers and firepower, but superior numbers don't matter if you can't hit your target. Lisa looked around the laboratory at the weapons and equipment that would soon determine the fate of the galaxy. Every piece of technology represented years of work by the brightest minds humanity could produce. Every weapon had been designed specifically to fight enemies that seemed impossible to defeat. There's something else, Helen said quietly. Something I've been working on in my spare time. She led them to a smaller workbench in the corner of the lab. Here she had assembled what looked like a simple communication device, but Lisa could tell from Helen's expression that it was much more than that. Personal shield generators, Helen explained. Small enough to wear like a belt, powerful enough to stop weapons fire that could destroy a building. I've made enough for all of our ship captains and ground commanders. Peter picked up one of the devices and examined it carefully. This is incredible. With protection like this, our officers can lead from the front without worrying about being taken out by enemy snipers. Lisa felt a surge of pride as she looked around the laboratory. This was what made humanity special. Not just their willingness to fight, but their ability to innovate under pressure. Every challenge they faced became an opportunity to develop new solutions. How long before all of this is ready for combat? She asked. Helen checked her schedule. Display. Everything will be operational within 48 hours. The ships, the weapons, the ground equipment, all of it. Peter was already thinking about deployment strategies. We can position our forces throughout the outer colonies without anyone noticing. The Devourers will think they're facing our regular fleet until it's too late. Lisa nodded. This was exactly what she had hoped to hear. Humanity would be ready when the enemy arrived, and they would be ready with weapons and tactics that the Devourers had never encountered before. One more thing, she said. Make sure every human ship captain understands the rules of engagement. We're not just fighting to defend ourselves. We're fighting to end the Devourer threat permanently. No half measures, no mercy, no retreat. Helen and Peter both nodded. They understood what she meant. This war would end with either human victory or human extinction. There was no middle ground. As Lisa prepared to leave the facility, she took one last look at the ships and weapons that would soon face the most dangerous enemy the galaxy had ever known. She felt no fear, only determination. The Devourers were about to learn what happened when they threatened humanity. The alarm klaxons echoed through the bridge of the UES Liberty as Captain Ryan Brooks studied the tactical display. The Devourer fleet had finally arrived at the Centauri system, and they were even more massive than the intelligence reports had suggested. 1,500 dark ships moved through space like a swarm of deadly insects, their hulls absorbing light and radiating menace. "Contact Admiral Hartwell," Ryan said to his communications officer. "Tell her the party has started." Lieutenant Ben Clark worked at his console for a moment before shaking his head. "Long-range communications are being jammed, sir. The Devourers are blocking all signals in and out of the system." Ryan nodded. He had expected this. The enemy always cut off communications to prevent their targets from calling for help. What they didn't know was that help was already here, hidden and waiting. "What's our status?" he asked. Commander Kate Miller, his executive officer, read from her display. All stealth systems are active. We're invisible to their sensors. The rest of the task force is in position and ready to engage. Ryan looked at the tactical display again. The human force in the Centauri system consisted of 30 ships, all of them equipped with the latest Prometheus technology. Against 1,500 enemy vessels, those odds would have seemed impossible to any other species. But Ryan and his crew had trained for exactly this scenario. "Show me their formation," he said. The display zoomed in on the Devourer fleet. The alien ships moved in a loose cluster, with their largest vessels in the center and smaller ships forming a protective screen around them. It was the same formation they had used to conquer dozens of other species. "They're heading for the main colony on Centauri Prime," Kate reported. "Estimated time to bombardment range is 6 hours. Ryan studied the enemy formation carefully. The Devourers were confident, maybe too confident. They moved slowly, taking their time, obviously expecting no real resistance. Their scouts had reported that the system contained only a small human colony with minimal defenses. "Sir," Lieutenant Clark said, "we're receiving a transmission from the Devourer flagship. They're broadcasting it to the entire system." "Put it on screen." The display changed to show the bridge of an alien ship. The creature standing in the center was clearly the commander, a being that looked like a cross between a crocodile and a spider. Its multiple eyes glowed with a cold intelligence, and its voice carried the arrogance of a predator that had never been challenged. "Humans of the Centauri system," the creature said, "I am war leader Kasak of the Devourer Empire. Your system has been chosen for harvest. Surrender now, and your deaths will be quick. Resist, and we will consume everything you have built, everything you love, and everything you are." The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in silence. "Standard procedure," Kate said quietly. "They always give their targets a chance to surrender before they attack. Makes them feel more civilized." Ryan smiled grimly. "Open a channel to all human ships in the system. It's time to introduce ourselves." A few moments later, Ryan was speaking to 30 ship captains who were waiting for his orders. Each one commanded a vessel packed with weapons that the galaxy had never seen. Each one had trained for years to fight an enemy that seemed invincible. "This is Captain Brooks," he said. "Operation First Strike is now active. Remember your training, remember your mission, and remember that the entire galaxy is watching. Let's show them what humans can do." The response came back immediately from 30 voices speaking in unison. "Understood, sir. Ready to engage." Ryan closed the channel and turned to his weapons officer. "Charge all quantum torpedo tubes. Target their flagship." "Quantum torpedoes charged and ready, sir," came the reply. "All ships," Ryan announced over the tactical network. "Execute first strike in 3, 2, 1, mark." The space around the Devourer fleet suddenly filled with light as 30 human ships appeared as if from nowhere. Their stealth systems deactivated simultaneously, revealing vessels that seemed to materialize out of empty space. The enemy had no warning, no time to prepare, no chance to react. The Liberty fired first, launching a spread of quantum torpedoes that covered the distance to the enemy flagship in seconds. The alien ship's shields flared as they tried to absorb the impact, but the quantum warheads punched through the energy barriers like they were made of paper. The explosion was visible from 3-star systems away. The massive Devourer flagship, a vessel 20 kilometers long that had never been seriously damaged in 3 centuries of warfare, broke apart in a ball of nuclear fire. Around the fleet, other human ships were engaging their targets with deadly precision. The Devourers tried to return fire, but their weapons were designed to destroy large, slow targets. The human ships moved like fighters, darting between the massive alien vessels and striking at weak points with surgical accuracy. "Sir," Kate reported, "enemy casualties are mounting rapidly. We've destroyed or disabled over 200 ships in the first 60 seconds. Ryan watched the tactical display with satisfaction. The Devourer formation was breaking apart as their ships tried to deal with enemies that moved faster than anything they had ever faced. Their massive size, which had always been an advantage, was now working against them. They were too big to maneuver quickly, too slow to track the human vessels. "Target their command ships," he ordered. "Take out their leadership and the rest. Will be easier to handle." The Liberty dove toward a cluster of Devourer heavy cruisers, its weapons firing continuously. Plasma bolts and missile salvos reached out to destroy enemies that had never experienced real resistance before. Each shot was perfectly aimed, each attack calculated for maximum effect. "Sir," Lieutenant Clark announced, "the enemy is trying to retreat. Some of their ships are breaking off and heading for the system edge." Ryan shook his head. "Not today. All ships, pursue and destroy. No survivors, no witnesses. We want the rest of their empire to wonder what happened here." The human ships spread out across the system, hunting down the fleeing Devourers with ruthless efficiency. This was not a battle between equals. This was an execution, carried out by predators who had been disguised as prey. One by one, the enemy ships died. Their superior technology meant nothing against opponents who refused to fight by the old rules. Their overwhelming numbers became meaningless when those numbers were scattered and confused. "Sir," Kate said, "we're receiving a transmission from one of the surviving Devourer ships. They're trying to surrender." Ryan looked at the tactical display. Only a dozen enemy vessels remained active, and most of those were heavily damaged. The great fleet that had arrived with such confidence was now reduced to scattered survivors, begging for mercy. "Ignore them," he said simply. "We didn't come here to take prisoners." The last Devourer ship died 40 minutes after the battle began. What had once been a mighty fleet was now nothing but debris and radiation scattered across the Centauri system. "Sir," Lieutenant Clark reported, "long-range communications are back online. The jamming has stopped." "Contact Admiral Hartwell," Ryan ordered. "Tell her that Centauri is secure. Enemy fleet eliminated with no human casualties." As the message was transmitted, Ryan looked around his bridge at the crew that had just accomplished something the galaxy thought was impossible. They had faced the most feared enemy in known space and destroyed them completely. "Sir," Kate said quietly, "the galactic news networks are picking up our transmission. By tomorrow, everyone will know what happened here." Ryan nodded. That was exactly what they wanted. Let the galaxy see that humanity was not like the other species. Let them understand that humans did not run from fights, did not surrender to bullies, and did not lose wars. The Liberty and its task force began the journey home, leaving behind a debris field that would serve as a monument to human determination. The Devourer Empire had just learned their first lesson about humanity. It would not be their last. Lisa stood in the command center deep beneath the surface of Earth, surrounded by displays showing the entire galaxy. The news from Centauri had spread quickly, and the reaction from other species had been exactly what she expected. Some were amazed, some were hopeful, and some were terrified of what humanity might do next. "Operation Thunderstrike is ready to begin," General Marcus Kane reported from his position at the tactical board. "All forces are in position at the 3 target systems." Lisa nodded as she studied the star map. The Devourers had 3 major strongholds that served as staging areas for their conquest fleets. New Geneva, Korvac Prime, and the asteroid fortress at Sigma Station. Each one was heavily defended and considered impossible to attack. "Show me the force deployments," she said. The display changed to show 3 separate tactical screens. At New Geneva, Major Kevin Stone commanded a force of 5,000 human Marines equipped with the latest combat gear. Above the planet, a fleet of 60 human warships waited in stealth mode for the signal to attack. At Korvac Prime, the situation was different. The enemy had turned the entire planet into a fortress, with orbital defense platforms and ground-based weapons that could destroy approaching fleets. Commander Sarah Phillips had positioned her task force in the system's outer asteroid belt, using the Space Rocks as cover while they prepared for the assault. Sigma Station was the most challenging target. The Devourers had built their fortress inside a massive asteroid, turning it into an impregnable base that controlled shipping lanes throughout the sector. Captain Alex Turner and his squadron of Ghost Rider stealth ships had spent weeks infiltrating the area, mapping defenses and identifying weak points. "Sir," Lieutenant Amy Rodriguez called from her communication station, "we're receiving reports from our scouts. The Devourers are reinforcing all 3 systems. They know we're coming." Lisa smiled. "Good. Let them bring everything they have. It will save us the trouble of hunting them down later." Marcus activated his command interface. "All task force commanders, this is General Kane. Operation Thunderstrike will commence in 60 seconds. Remember, we're not just trying to defeat the enemy. We're sending a message to their entire empire." On the displays, Lisa watched as human forces prepared for simultaneous attacks across half the galaxy. Each group had trained for their specific mission. Each commander knew exactly what needed to be done. "Thunderstrike commencing now," Marcus announced. At New Geneva, Major Kevin Stone led his Marines down from orbit in assault pods that could punch through enemy shields. The planet's surface was covered with Devourer installations, massive structures that looked like metallic growths spreading across the landscape. "All squads, this is Stone," he said over the tactical network. "Weapons free, no prisoners, and remember that every alien we kill here is one that won't be terrorizing innocent colonies." The Marines hit the ground running, their powered armor allowing them to move faster than any enemy could track. Their weapons carved through Devourer defenses like they were made of paper. Each squad operated independently, striking multiple targets simultaneously and keeping the enemy confused about where the main attack was coming from. Above the planet, the space battle was equally one-sided. Human ships darted between the massive Devourer stations, their quantum torpedoes and plasma cannons systematically dismantling defenses that had protected the system for decades. At Korvac Prime, Commander Sarah Phillips took a different approach. Instead of attacking directly, she used the asteroid belt as a weapon. Her ships pushed massive space rocks toward the planet, accelerating them to incredible speeds with tractor beams and drive systems. "Impact in 30 seconds, her weapons," officer reported. Sarah watched the tactical display as a dozen asteroids, each one the size of a city block, approached the planet at nearly the speed of light. The Devourer orbital platforms tried to intercept them, but there were too many targets moving too fast. The impacts lit up the planet's surface like a string of nuclear explosions. Each asteroid strike released more energy than the largest bombs ever built, shattering the enemy's ground installations and creating firestorms that could be seen from space. "Follow-up waves launching now," Sarah announced as her ships began pushing more asteroids toward their targets. At Sigma Station, Captain Alex Turner and his stealth squadron had a more delicate mission. The asteroid fortress was too well defended, for a direct assault, but it had one critical weakness. All of its power came from a fusion reactor buried deep in the asteroid's core. "Ghost leader to all phantoms," Turner said over the encrypted channel. "We're going in quiet. Plant your charges and get out before they know we're here." The Ghost Rider ships slipped through the enemy's sensor network like shadows. Their stealth, technology making them invisible to the most advanced detection systems. Each ship carried a team of engineers equipped with quantum disruptor charges specifically designed to overload fusion reactors. Turner's ship, the Silent Death, led the way through a maintenance tunnel that had been overlooked by the Fortress designers. His team moved through the asteroid's interior, avoiding patrols and security systems as they made their way toward the reactor complex. "Charges in place," his engineer reported after 20 minutes of careful work. "Detonation in 5 minutes." The human teams retreated as quickly as they had advanced, their ship slipping away from the fortress before the enemy realized they had been infiltrated. Back on Earth, Lisa watched all 3 operations unfold simultaneously on her tactical displays. Each attack was progressing exactly as planned, but she knew the real test would come when the Devourers tried to mount a counterattack. "Sir," Lieutenant Rodriguez reported, "we're detecting massive enemy fleet movements. The Devourers are sending reinforcements to all 3 systems." Lisa studied the new contacts appearing on her sensors. The enemy was responding with typical massive force, sending hundreds of ships to crush what they assumed was a limited human attack. "Let them come," she said. "Marcus, activate Phase 2. At New Geneva, Major Stone's Marines had secured the planet's surface, but now they faced a new threat. A Devourer fleet of over 300 ships was approaching the system, intent on retaking their lost stronghold. "All ground units, take cover," Stone ordered as he watched the enemy ships enter orbital bombardment range. "Let the Navy handle this part." Suddenly, space around New Geneva filled with human ships. Not the 60 vessels the Devourers expected, but over 200 warships that had been hiding in stealth mode throughout the system. The enemy fleet found themselves surrounded and outnumbered for the first time in their history. The battle was swift and brutal. Human ships attacked from all directions, their superior speed and weapons technology giving them an overwhelming advantage. The Devourer reinforcements, expecting to rescue a beleaguered garrison, instead found themselves trapped in a carefully planned ambush. At Korvac Prime, Sarah Phillips watched with satisfaction as the last of the orbital platforms exploded under asteroid bombardment. The planet's surface was a wasteland of craters and fire, but the real surprise came when the Devourer reinforcement fleet arrived. "Enemy fleet entering system now," her sensor operator reported. 400 ships, heavy cruiser class and above. Sarah smiled. "Perfect. All ships, execute Hammer Protocol." Hidden throughout the asteroid belt were weapon platforms that had been disguised as mining equipment. When they activated, the belt became a massive fortress with hundreds of plasma, cannons, and missile launchers. The Devourer fleet found themselves flying into the most elaborate trap ever constructed. At Sigma Station, Turner's sabotage mission reached its climax just as enemy reinforcements arrived. The quantum charges detonated deep inside the asteroid, causing a chain reaction that turned the entire fortress into a miniature star. The explosion was so bright it could be seen from neighboring star systems. The reinforcement fleet, arriving, just in time to watch their impregnable fortress disappear in nuclear fire, hesitated for a critical moment. That moment was all Turner needed. His stealth squadron struck from concealment, their quantum torpedoes finding targets among the confused and demoralized enemy ships. "Sir," Lieutenant Rodriguez announced. All 3 operations are complete. New Geneva is secure. Korvac Prime is neutralized. And Sigma Station no longer exists. Lisa looked at the casualty reports appearing on her display. Human losses were minimal, while the Devourers had lost over 2,000 ships and 3 major strongholds in a single day. Send. A message to all human commanders, she said. Phase 1 of our counteroffensive is complete. Begin Phase 2 immediately. Marcus looked at her with curiosity. Phase 2? Lisa activated the main tactical display, showing the location of every known Devourer installation in the galaxy. Red. Markers indicated targets that were now under attack by human forces that had been moving into position for weeks. We're not just defending ourselves, she said. We're eliminating the Devourer threat permanently. Every base, every ship, every trace of their empire. When this is over, there'll be nothing but a memory. The displays showed human forces striking across dozens of star systems simultaneously. The galaxy was about to witness the most comprehensive military campaign in recorded history, and it was being carried out by the massive Devourer flagship Eternal Hunger emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the solar system, followed by the largest fleet ever assembled in galactic history. 8,000 ships of various sizes formed a dark cloud that seemed to swallow the light from distant stars. At the center of this armada sat the personal command vessel of Emperor Vorthak, the undisputed ruler of the Devourer Empire. Emperor Vorthak stood on his bridge, his massive form towering over his subordinates. Unlike the other Devourers, his body was covered in biomechanical enhancements that marked his status as the ultimate predator. His 4 arms ended in claws that could tear through metal, and his eyes glowed with an intelligence sharpened by 3 centuries of conquest. So, he said, his voice carrying the authority of absolute power, these humans think they can challenge the empire I have built. They destroy a few frontier fleets and believe they have achieved something significant. War leader Sethak, one of his most trusted commanders, approached carefully. My Emperor, perhaps we should reconsider this direct assault. The humans have demonstrated capabilities we did not expect. Their technology seems far more advanced than our intelligence suggested. Vorthak's laugh was like the sound of grinding metal. Advanced technology means nothing without the will to use it properly. Every species we have conquered possessed some advantage they thought would save them. Better shields, faster ships, more powerful weapons. All of them fell because they lacked the killer instinct that defines true predators. He gestured toward the displays showing the solar system ahead of them. The humans have shown cleverness, I admit, but cleverness is not enough when facing overwhelming force. Today, I will personally oversee the consumption of their home world. When Earth burns, the galaxy will remember why the Devourer Empire has ruled for 300 years. On Earth, Lisa stood in the Luna Defense Network Command Center watching the approaching enemy fleet with calm determination. The center was built deep inside the moon's surface, protected by meters of rock and the most advanced shielding technology humanity could produce. 8,000 ships, Admiral Tony Chen reported from his position at the Fleet Coordination Station. The largest force ever assembled by any species in galactic history. Lisa nodded as she studied the tactical displays. And probably the last force the Devourer Empire will ever assemble. Are all defense platforms ready? Colonel Beth Adams, commanding the ground defense forces, checked her status boards. All orbital installations are online and ready. Surface-to-space missile batteries are charged and targeted. Ground forces are deployed to protect critical infrastructure. Tony was reviewing fleet positions. Our ships are in position throughout. the asteroid belt and around the outer planets. The enemy won't see them until it's too late. Lisa had spent months preparing for this moment. The defense of Earth was not just about protecting one planet. It was about proving to the galaxy that humanity could face any threat and emerge victorious. Every weapon, every strategy, every soldier had been positioned for this single confrontation. "Sir," Lieutenant Rodriguez announced, "the enemy fleet is beginning its approach. They're moving in standard conquest formation with their largest ships in the center and screening forces spread out on the flanks." Lisa smiled. "Just like every other battle they've ever fought. They've conquered so many species using the same tactics that they can't imagine facing an enemy who might respond differently." The Devourer fleet advanced through the solar system like a slow-moving storm. Their ships were arranged in the classic formation that had brought them victory after victory. Massive dreadnoughts protected by clouds of smaller vessels, all moving at a steady pace toward their target. "They're heading directly for Earth," Tony reported. "No attempt at stealth, no clever maneuvers. They're planning to overwhelm our defenses with raw firepower." Lisa activated her command console. "All units, this is Admiral Hartwell. The enemy has entered our solar system, and they're about to learn why you don't threaten humanity's homeworld. Stand by for Fortress Protocol activation." Emperor Vorthak studied the tactical displays on his flagship as his fleet moved deeper into the solar system. So far, they had encountered no resistance. A few human patrol ships had been detected and destroyed, but nothing that suggested serious opposition. "The humans are hiding," War Leader Sethak observed. "Their main fleet has retreated to Earth orbit. They plan to make their final stand around their home world." Vorthak nodded approvingly. "Predictable. Every species we have conquered has done the same thing. They concentrate their forces around their most important planet, hoping to achieve a decisive victory that will save their civilization." He gestured toward the inner solar system. "Continue our advance. When we reach Earth orbit, we will destroy their fleet and then bombard the planet until nothing remains but radioactive ash." What the Emperor didn't know was that his fleet was already surrounded. Hidden throughout the asteroid belt were weapon platforms disguised as mining equipment and orbital debris. Each one was equipped with plasma cannons and missile launchers that could destroy capital ships with single shots. "Sir," Lieutenant Rodriguez announced, "enemy fleet is now within the asteroid belt. Fortress Protocol is ready for activation." Lisa looked around the command center at the officers who had planned this defense for years. Each one knew their role perfectly. Each one understood that the fate of humanity rested on the decisions made in the next few hours. "Activate Fortress." "Protocol!" she ordered. Suddenly, the asteroid belt came alive with weapons fire. Hundreds of hidden platforms revealed themselves as they opened fire on the Devourer fleet. Plasma bolts and missile salvos reached out across millions of kilometers to strike targets that had no idea they were under attack. The first wave of fire destroyed over 300 enemy ships in the opening seconds. The massive Devourer vessels, built to withstand conventional weapons, found themselves facing technology that could punch through their armor like it was made of cardboard. "All human fleet units," Lisa announced, "execute Phase 1 of the Earth Defense Plan." From concealment around Jupiter and Saturn, human warships emerged and began their attack runs. These were not the regular fleet vessels that the galaxy knew about. These were the newest Prometheus-class ships, equipped with quantum weapons and stealth technology that made them nearly invisible. Emperor Vorthak watched in shock as his mighty fleet came under attack from enemies that seemed to appear from nowhere. The asteroid belt, which his sensors had shown as empty space filled with harmless rocks, was revealed to be the most elaborate fortress ever constructed. "How is this possible?" he demanded. "Our intelligence showed that the humans had only a few hundred ships and minimal defensive installations." War leader Sethak was studying the tactical displays with growing alarm. "Emperor, our losses are mounting rapidly. The enemy weapons are far more powerful than anything we've encountered before, and our sensors are detecting ships where none existed moments ago." Vorthak snarled in rage. "Impossible! No species has technology that advanced. Continue the attack. Overwhelm them with numbers." But the Devourer fleet was discovering that numbers meant nothing when those numbers were scattered and confused. The human defense plan had turned the entire solar system into a weapon, with every asteroid, every planet, and every moon serving as a base for hidden installations. "Sir," Tony Chen reported, "Phase 1 is complete. Enemy fleet strength reduced by 40%. Beginning Phase 2. Lisa nodded as she watched the tactical displays. The Devourer fleet was still massive, but it was no longer the unstoppable force that had entered the solar system. Their formation was breaking apart as ships tried to deal with attacks coming from every direction. "Activate the Mars defense. Grid!" she ordered. Around Mars, weapon platforms that had been disguised as communication satellites suddenly revealed their true purpose. The entire planet was surrounded by a network of plasma cannons and missile launchers that created an impenetrable barrier of destructive energy. The Devourer ships trying to flank Earth through the outer solar system found themselves flying into a trap that had been waiting for them for years. The Mars grid opened fire with synchronized precision, destroying hundreds of enemy vessels in a coordinated barrage that lit up space like a miniature star. "Emperor," War Leader Sethak said urgently, "we must retreat. Our fleet is being destroyed piecemeal. The humans have turned their entire solar system into a fortress." Vorthak's rage was beyond rational thought. "No retreat! I will not be the first emperor in 3 centuries to flee from a battle. Continue the attack!" But his fleet was already beginning to collapse. Human ships were striking from every direction, their superior speed and firepower making them almost impossible to counter. The massive Devourer vessels that had once seemed invincible were being picked apart by enemies that fought like no other species in galactic history. "Sir," Lieutenant Rodriguez announced, "enemy fleet strength is down to 60% and falling. They're trying to regroup around their flagship." Lisa looked at the tactical display showing Emperor Vorthak's command ship. It was a massive vessel, larger than anything humanity had ever built, but it was just another target to be eliminated. "All units," she announced, "concentrate fire on the enemy flagship. Let's." The wreckage of the Devourer fleet drifted through the solar system like a graveyard of failed ambitions. Twisted metal and burning hulls marked the spots where the galaxy's most feared warships had met their end. But Lisa was not celebrating. Yet. Victory would only be complete when every last enemy ship was destroyed. "Status report," she demanded from her position in the Luna Command Center. Admiral Tony Chen studied his displays carefully. "Enemy fleet strength is down to 12% of original numbers. Approximately 900 ships are attempting to retreat to the system edge. Their formation is completely broken." Colonel Beth Adams was monitoring communications intercepts. "We're picking up enemy transmissions. They're trying to coordinate an escape to their home systems. Some ships are already jumping to hyperspace." Lisa felt a surge of cold determination. "Not acceptable. Signal all fleet commanders. Operation Great Hunt is now active. I want every surviving Devourer ship tracked down and destroyed. No survivors. No witnesses. No hope of regrouping." The Great Hunt was humanity's plan to pursue and eliminate the Devourer threat completely. For too long, The alien empire had terrorized the galaxy because defeated enemies had always been allowed to escape and rebuild. Humanity would not make that mistake. "Sir," Lieutenant Rodriguez announced, "Captain Turner is requesting permission to begin pursuit operations. His stealth squadrons are already tracking several enemy ships that escaped the main battle." Lisa nodded. "Tell Turner he has full authorization. Rules of engagement are simple. Destroy everything with Devourer markings. No exceptions." Captain Alex Turner commanded Task Force Shadow, a collection of the most advanced stealth ships in the human fleet. His mission was to hunt down enemy vessels that thought they had escaped the destruction of their main fleet. From the bridge of his ship, the Ghostwalker, he watched his tactical displays with the patience of a born predator. "Contact bearing 07 Mark IV, his sensor operator reported. "Single Devourer heavy cruiser, running silent and trying to reach the hyperspace jump point." Turner smiled grimly. "They think they're being clever. Show them how wrong they are. All ships, attack pattern Delta. Let's end this quickly." The human stealth ships moved through space like deadly shadows, their advanced technology making them invisible to enemy sensors. The Devourer cruiser had no warning before quantum torpedoes began exploding against its hull. Within minutes, another enemy ship had been reduced to drifting debris. Meanwhile, Major Kate Ross was coordinating intelligence operations from a hidden base in the outer system. Her job was to track down every Devourer installation, every supply depot, every hidden refuge where surviving enemies might try to rebuild their strength. "We've identified 17 locations where enemy ships are attempting to regroup," she reported to Lisa over an encrypted channel. "Most of them are in uncharted systems that they thought we didn't know about." Lisa studied the intelligence reports with satisfaction. "How long before we can have strike forces in position?" "Task forces are already en route to 12 of the locations," Kate replied. "The remaining targets will be hit within 48 hours. This was what made humanity different from other species. They didn't just win battles and then go home to celebrate. They pursued their enemies relentlessly, making sure that threats were eliminated completely and permanently. In the Corvin Nebula, Commander Dave Peterson led a squadron of human destroyers against a Devourer supply base that had been hidden in the gas clouds for decades. The aliens had thought their secret refuge was safe from discovery. "Enemy installation detected," his scanner operator announced. "Heavily defended, but their weapons are designed to repel conventional attacks." Dave smiled as he activated his ship's quantum disruptor cannons. "Too bad we don't fight conventionally. All ships, begin bombardment. Let's turn their safe haven into a debris field." The hidden base, which had supplied Devourer fleets for over 50 years, was destroyed in less than 20 minutes. Every structure, every ship, every trace of enemy presence was systematically eliminated. Similar attacks were taking place across dozens of star systems as human forces hunted down the scattered remnants of the Devourer Empire. Captain Lisa Wong tracked enemy refugees through the Spiral Nebula. Major Tom Bradley eliminated a Devourer research station in the Outer Rim. Lieutenant Colonel Sarah Davis led Marines in assaults on hidden bases that the enemy thought were beyond human reach. Back in the solar system, Lisa was coordinating the largest military operation in galactic history. Her forces were spread across hundreds of light years, but advanced communication technology allowed her to monitor every engagement in real time. "Sir," Admiral Chen reported, "we're receiving surrender requests from several enemy commanders. They're offering to provide intelligence in exchange for their lives." Lisa's expression didn't change. "Denied. We have all the intelligence we need. And we don't negotiate with species that consume entire civilizations. Lieutenant Rodriguez looked up from her communications console. Admiral, some of the other galactic species are expressing concern about our operations. They're saying we're being too aggressive in pursuing the devourers. Lisa laughed, but there was no humor in the sound. Too aggressive? These are the same species that were ready to surrender without firing a shot. Let them be concerned. When we're finished, they'll thank us for eliminating a threat they were too weak to handle themselves. The hunt continued for weeks as human forces tracked down every trace of devourer presence in the galaxy. No hiding place was too remote, no refuge too well hidden. Humanity's determination to completely eliminate the threat was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Captain Turner's stealth squadrons became legends among human forces as they hunted enemy ships through uncharted space. His crews developed an almost supernatural ability to locate hidden vessels and strike before the enemy knew they were in danger. Contact in the Vega system, his sensor operator reported during one patrol. 3 enemy ships trying to reach a hidden refueling station. Turner checked his tactical display. Looks like they're the last survivors from the 3rd Fleet that escaped at Sigma Station. Let's finish what we started there. The engagement was swift and decisive. The Devourer ships, already damaged from previous battles, had no chance against fresh human vessels equipped with the latest weapons technology. Within an hour, the Vega system was clear of enemy presence. Major Ross's intelligence network had become so effective that they were intercepting enemy communications before the messages could be transmitted. Her teams had cracked Devourer encryption codes and were using the aliens' own communication systems against them. We've located their last major staging area, she reported to Lisa. Hidden base in the Andromeda Reach, about 200 ships, and support facilities. It's their final stronghold. Lisa studied the intelligence data carefully. The base was heavily defended and located in a region of space that most species considered impossible to navigate. But humanity had already proven that impossible was just another word for challenging. Assemble Task Force Terminator, she ordered. I want our best ships and our most experienced commanders. This is where we end the Devourer threat permanently. Task Force Terminator consisted of over 300 ships, including the newest Prometheus-class vessels and the most advanced stealth technology humanity had developed. The force was commanded by Admiral Chen personally, with orders to leave nothing alive in the target system. The final battle took place in the darkness between stars, far from any inhabited system. The Devourer base was a massive installation, built into an asteroid cluster, designed to be the Empire's last refuge if their conquest campaigns ever failed. Enemy defenses are stronger than expected, Admiral Chen reported as his forces began their attack. But nothing we can't handle. All ships, execute Plan Omega. Plan Omega was humanity's ultimate tactical doctrine, overwhelming force applied with surgical precision. The human ships attacked in coordinated waves, each strike designed to eliminate specific enemy capabilities. Their quantum weapons punched through defenses that had never been breached. Their stealth technology allowed them to strike from unexpected angles. The battle lasted 6 hours, but the outcome was never in doubt. When it was over, the last Devourer stronghold was nothing but radioactive debris drifting in empty space. Sir, Lieutenant Rodriguez announced, Admiral Chen reports mission accomplished. The Andromeda base has been completely destroyed. No survivors detected. Lisa looked at the strategic display showing the galaxy. For the first time in over 300 years, there were no red markers indicating Devourer presence. The threat that had terrorized countless species was finally extinct. Send a message to all human forces, she said. Operation Great Hunt is complete. All units are to return to base for debriefing and reassignment. Colonel Adams was reviewing casualty reports. Final numbers, sir. Total human losses for the entire campaign. 47 ships destroyed, 1,200 personnel killed in action. Enemy losses. Complete destruction of their empire. Lisa nodded with satisfaction. The price had been acceptable for such a complete victory. Humanity had faced the galaxy's greatest threat and not just defeated it, but eliminated it entirely. The chamber fell silent as the council members absorbed the implications of what they were hearing. The scope of human operations went far beyond simple military conquest. They had systematically rescued survivors, relocated refugees, and begun the process of rebuilding civilizations that had been written off as lost. Lisa returned to her seat at the table. This is the new reality, honored representatives. Humanity will serve as the galaxy's protector against threats that you lack the will to face. Aggressive species will be deterred, peaceful civilizations will be protected, and predatory empires will be eliminated before they can grow large enough to threaten anyone. The Carillion representative made a sound like distant thunder. And what about our sovereignty? Our right to govern our own systems? Lisa's smile was cold. Your sovereignty extends exactly as far as your ability to protect innocent lives. When you prove unwilling or unable to defend peaceful civilizations, sovereignty becomes meaningless. She activated a final display showing the new galactic security arrangement. Human bases were positioned at strategic points throughout known space, connected by patrol routes that could respond to threats within hours instead of months. The Galactic Council will continue to exist, she said. You'll continue to govern your own species and regulate trade between civilizations. But military matters are now humanity's responsibility. The Thessian representative tried one more time to assert traditional authority. The Council has not voted on this arrangement. We have not agreed to cede military authority to any single species. Lisa stood and walked to the door of the chamber. You don't need to vote on reality, and your agreement is not required for facts. The Devourer Empire is extinct because humanity chose to fight. The galaxy is safe because human forces are protecting it, and future threats will be eliminated because we have both the capability and the will to do what needs to be done. She paused at the door and looked back at the assembled representatives. 6 months ago, you asked me what would happen if war was unavoidable. I wrote down the answer and walked out of this chamber. Do you remember what that answer was? The Zephyrian. Ambassador nodded slowly. Then don't lose. Exactly, Lisa said. Humanity doesn't lose wars. We end them. The Devourers learned that lesson, and now they're extinct. Any future species that threatens peaceful civilizations will learn the same lesson. She opened the door and stepped into the corridor. The galaxy is under new management now. Try not to give us any reasons to demonstrate why that's a good thing. As the door closed behind her, Lisa could hear the urgent voices of the council. 6 months had passed since the last Devourer ship was destroyed in the darkness between stars. The galaxy was still adjusting to a reality that most species had thought impossible, the complete elimination of the empire that had ruled through fear for over 3 centuries. Lisa stood once again in the Galactic Council chambers on Luna Station, but everything had changed. The circular table was the same, the representatives were mostly the same beings, but the balance of power had shifted completely. Where once she had been questioned and doubted, now she commanded respect that bordered on fear. The Zephyrian ambassador, who had asked the fateful question months earlier, sat quietly in his chair. His tall, thin form seemed smaller somehow. as if the reality of human military power had physically diminished him. Around the table, other representatives shifted nervously as they waited for Lisa to speak. "Admiral Hartwell," the Altarian ambassador began carefully, her purple skin showing the pale coloring that indicated extreme caution. "We have requested this meeting to discuss the new situation in the galaxy." Lisa looked around the table, at faces that showed a mixture of gratitude, fear, and uncertainty. These were the same beings who had been ready to surrender to the Devourers without firing a shot. Now they were trying to understand how to deal with a species that had accomplished what they thought was impossible. "The situation is simple," Lisa said calmly. "The Devourer threat has been eliminated permanently. Every ship, every base, every trace of their empire has been destroyed. The galaxy is safe from their predations." The Carillion representative made its wind chime sound, but softer than usual. "We are grateful for humanity's intervention, but some species are concerned about what comes next. Your forces remain deployed throughout the galaxy. Your ships patrol systems that were once considered sovereign territory." Lisa smiled, but it was not a warm expression. "Our ships patrol systems that need protection. The galaxy has been operating under the assumption that predatory species like the Devourers were an unavoidable fact of life. We've proven that assumption wrong." She activated a display that showed the current position of human forces throughout known space. Red markers indicated permanent bases, blue markers showed patrol routes, and green markers identified systems under direct human protection. "Earth has taken responsibility for galactic security," she continued. "We will ensure that no species can threaten peaceful civilizations the way the Devourers did." The Thessian representative shifted nervously, his forearms moving in agitation. "But who decides which species are threats? Who determines what actions constitute aggression? Humanity appears to have appointed itself as judge and jury for the entire galaxy." Lisa's expression didn't change, but something in her eyes made several representatives lean back in their chairs. "Humanity has appointed itself as the species willing to do what needs to be done. For 300 years, your civilizations cowered in fear while the Devourers consumed entire worlds. When they finally came for you, you were ready to surrender, without even trying to fight." She stood and walked to the large viewing window that showed Earth hanging in space like a blue jewel. "We asked you a simple question 6 months ago. If war was unavoidable, what would you do? Your answer was to calculate surrender probabilities and discuss evacuation plans." The chamber was completely silent as Lisa turned back to face the assembled representatives. "Our answer was to win," she said simply, "and we did." The Meridian ambassador, a being whose crystalline form sparkled with nervous energy, spoke up hesitantly. "No one questions humanity's military achievements. But the scale of your operations concerns some species. You didn't just defeat the Devourers. You hunted them down systematically until none remained." Lisa nodded. "Exactly. We eliminated the threat completely and permanently. That's what you do with predatory species that consume civilizations. You don't negotiate with them. You don't contain them. And you certainly don't let them escape to rebuild their strength." Admiral Chen entered the chamber and whispered something in Lisa's ear. She nodded and activated her communication device. "Bring them in," she said. The chamber doors opened to admit a group of beings that most of the council members had never seen before. They were refugees from worlds that had been consumed by the Devourers, survivors who had spent decades hiding in the dark spaces between stars. An elderly Valtarian female stepped forward, her scarred body showing evidence of injuries that had never properly healed. "Honored council members," she said in a voice that carried the weight of terrible experiences, "I am Keeper Valna, one of the last survivors of the Valtarian civilization." Several council members shifted uncomfortably. The Valtarians had been one of the first species consumed by the Devourers, their entire civilization destroyed before the galactic community had even understood the scope of the threat. "My people numbered 12 billion souls when the Devourers found our worlds," Valna continued. "They gave us the same choice they gave everyone: surrender quickly for a merciful death, or resist and be consumed slowly. We chose to resist." Her voice grew stronger as she spoke. "For 50 years, we fought a guerrilla war against an enemy that saw us as nothing more than food. We lost world after world, system after system, until only a few thousand of us remained, alive." She turned to look directly at Lisa. "When we heard that humanity had not just defeated the Devourers but eliminated them entirely, we could hardly believe it. No species had ever been able to do more than slow them down temporarily." The Zephyrian ambassador spoke quietly. We did not know any Valtarians still existed." Valna's laugh was bitter. "That's because none of you ever looked for us. You wrote off our entire civilization when the Devourers overran our core worlds. To you, we had ceased to exist." She gestured to the other refugees standing behind her. "There are survivors from 17 different species that the galaxy assumes are extinct. We've been hiding in the darkness, barely surviving, while the rest of you continued your normal lives and pretended. The Devourers were someone else's problem." Lisa activated another display showing human rescue operations throughout the galaxy. "Our forces have located and evacuated over 2 million survivors from supposedly extinct civilizations. They're being relocated to protected worlds where they can rebuild their societies under human protection." The Altarian ambassador looked stunned. 2 million? We had no idea so many had survived." "Because you never looked," Lisa said bluntly. "You were too busy calculating surrender probabilities to think about rescue operations." Keeper Valna stepped closer to the council table. "Admiral Hartwell's forces didn't just destroy our enemies. They gave us back our hope. For the first time, in 50 years we can think about building a future instead of just surviving another day."